Good afternoon. My name is Erin Surska, and I'm running for the Northwest District seat. I am married to my husband, Ryan. He stays at home. He did 12 years active duty Marine Corps and enjoys his time at the gym and taking care of some of our kids. I currently work for the county as a coordinator there. I'm hoping to bring to the table to listen, learn, and use logic for my decision making. I think it's important that we listen to all citizens and all people within my district and across the city, that I learn from my staff, the staff of the city, and from the constituents, and then use logic to make decisions as part of that decision making body.
Say, Tom, are these the opening statements?
Yes.
Oh,
We're okay so far. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Greg Neitzer. I'm running for the Northwest District. I'm 37 years old. I'm a software engineer at Unisys. I've been with them for about 15 years. I currently serve on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I've been on the board for 5 years. I'm in the middle of my second term. My priorities are going to be quality of life that everyone can afford. That's pools, parks, libraries. Bringing a fiscally conservative mindset to the City Council. We need to address our user fees and taxes. We've had very large user fee increases over the years as we've moved our rates over to the fees rather than our second penny sales tax. We have record debt. We need to pay that down. We need to work on transparency. We need to bring things to the council more early and more often. Infrastructure. We need to work on our roads. Our roads are in bad shape. We need to work on our roads. I've been going to council meetings for about 5 years. I've been watching council meetings for 10 years. I've been studying the issues, the policies, the ordinances. So I have a deep knowledge of city government, and I'll hit the ground running. Thank you.
My name is Jacob Johnson. I'm also running, as you know, for the Northwest Council seat. Married to my wife for about 5 years now. Have 4 kids. Don't get a lot of sleep. But politics is kind of a new realm for me. I've been recently attending city council meetings. Obviously, it's a day-to-day thing that we all deal with. We wonder sometimes why the council or why state, federal do things, but I think a lot of times we're not as informed as we should be. So I've kind of undertaken it to become more informed, to try and understand their reasoning, and I don't have any specific issues right now, obviously, but something I think that we've all kind of mentioned, just what government should be. It should be good. It should be thoughtful. These things shouldn't be done on a whim. I guess that sums it up for now.
Thank you. I'm Manny Steele, and I just want to give you a little background of where I come from. Right out of high school, I went to the military for 6 years. After that, I went to work for the telephone company, good old Northwestern Bell, climbing poles, stringing wire out in Rapid City. Went from there to Mitchell, to Sioux Falls, where I spent most of my career, and on to Omaha. During that period of time, I started in craft, went back to college in the evening, and got my BA in business administration. Ended up in management doing the hiring for the phone company. After that, came back to Sioux Falls for a bit and went to Texas for 7 years. Worked for a non-campus Christian correspondence university. We ship books to 200 and some countries, and we sent them out in 4 different languages. I run the warehouse, and I also did the distribution of the books, sending them out. Come back to Sioux Falls in '99 because that's where the grandkids were, and it was time to come home. After that, I got involved in politics and ended up in Pierre for 8 years and was term limited out of that 2 years ago. Dealt a lot with the city council, with the county commissioners in both Lincoln and Minnehaha County, and feel like it gave me a good background to just look at the city council seat and say, I feel there's some of this that will fit very well into the city council. I would like to talk to all of you about economy and open government. I think we're making progress. We got a long way to go as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot that involves in the economy, and I think it's one of the most critical parts of our government. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. My name is Marshall Selbert. Is there a politician in the house?
There we go.
I am a candidate for the Southwest District seat for our city council. I have been a resident with my wife Jolene and our daughters Rachel and Riley, who attend Roosevelt High School. We've been residents for 15 years. A little background on me, I grew up in Hendricks, Minnesota. Anybody familiar with Hendricks, Minnesota out there? So somewhat of an area boy. If you're not familiar where it is, Brookings and Marshall, it's pretty much right in between on the South Dakota-Minnesota border. I grew up in a small town. My dad was a farm implement dealer. Kind of got a lot of our values, got interested in politics through a lot of things with my dad being a business owner. Upon graduation, moved to SDSU, became a jackrabbit. There we go, saw a couple thumbs up there. Juggled grades, always had a job, and I was a student athlete. I say that lightly because I played golf, but it sounds good. So after graduating from SDSU, my wife and I started our careers in Brookings. We had our children in Brookings, and that was before moving here some 15 years ago. I am running for city council because I believe my 25 years of business experience and my community service have given me a skill set that will help make me an effective leader of Sioux Falls. I believe I've got the commitment and the desire that's essential to serve and do the job. And I think that we need vision, leadership, and action right now, and that's a skill set that I'm looking to provide if elected. So I want to thank you again for having me, and looking forward to our discussion today.
Okay, just so you're aware, the three persons closest to me are running in the Northwest District, and the two on my far left, not geographically, not politically, are running in the Southwest District. So we will open it to questions, and we'll just pass the mic back and forth. So Bruce, did you want to start?
Yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you all for being here and wanting to be part of the system. But I wrote something down here quick so I don't get it right. I've been doing voting research for many years, and I'm doing it again this year. One of the interesting things I've noticed is the lack of interest citizens have towards local government. Most of you candidates have never been involved in local government and have shown almost no interest in city election voting. Why should we care you are on the ballot when you have not cared to even vote, much less show up at council meetings before this election season? And I'm not just picking on any of you in particular, because we have another group of candidates that'll be speaking, and I'll hope to ask the same question, is why do you think we should care that you're on the ballot when you haven't cared to even go to a city election and vote? So if any of you want to answer that. And
For those sitting up here, I would really be surprised if every one of those weren't out voting every time there's someplace to vote. Now, it's obvious that a lot of them do not. Appreciate all you folks being here, because obviously you're more concerned of what's happening to Sioux Falls and the activities. So I think the thing is also, now that we have CityLink, a lot of people do watch that. I know I catch that more than I do going downtown. And that's an asset to all of us, especially those who are running. So.
Somebody else want to?
As I stated before, and I can't speak for anybody else, I haven't looked at their voting history, and it's not fair for me to speak for anybody else, but I'll speak for myself. As I said, I've been going to city council meetings for 5 or 6 years. I've been living and breathing this, and I found that the dynamic is different when you go see it in person. It's really great. It's really, you can kind of see all the things that are going on. And so I've been deeply involved in city government, very passionate about a lot of different issues, and CityLink is great. There's a lot of people that can watch it at home, can't make it to council meetings, and that's great, that's fine. So obviously, I vote in city elections. That's certainly not an issue, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I've been deeply involved, and that's why I think I'll hit the ground running.
Thank you. And I'm just going to echo Mr. Steele. I'd be very surprised to know that none of us sitting up here haven't participated and voted in everything humanly possible for Inform. But I would like to say that there are numerous ways to be involved in your community and know and support local government. There's voting. There's registering your cars at the local, using local government facilities. But also, there's ways to volunteer in your community, right? So you all sitting here, probably all vote as well, but that's a way to be involved in your community, which in turn is, you know, putting your voice toward local government. I have 3 kids that attend public schools, so I'm very involved in local school, or I'm a recipient of the decisions of the school board and very interested in that. I have kids in numerous various activities within our community, which also provides experience and knowledge and wanting to know about what's going on in our local government. Something I always talk about too is, folks, right now this year is a presidential election year, right? And there's lots of fun things to talk about when it comes to a presidential election, like tanning and hand size and maybe hairstyles. However, I do want to tell you that when somebody wants to talk about the presidential election, I say, who is your city, county, and state representative? Because they're the decisions that affect your day-to-day life more.
Good point.
Great. You don't mind? I think it's a good question. I've thought about that a lot ever since the idea came into my head. And I've thought, why am I running? What sort of impetus is it? I think everyone comes in waves in these things. It has been in my life. I remember being very politically active when I was 18 and first registered to vote. And as time goes on, sometimes you get disillusioned with government and you decide, well, let it rip. I don't care anymore. And then you come back. And I think that's, I don't know, I can speak for myself, that's how it was for a long time. And then having recently, having a heightened awareness that I could make a difference. Instead of complaining to people or just calling in, I could actually be a positive change in the system. I guess that's personally why I joined this race.
Welcome back.
Speaking on my behalf, I've been heavily involved in the community for a number of years. I've been a heavy volunteer with the Chamber of Commerce. I work with the Diplomat Committee, where we're kind of a servicing arm out with businesses, seeing what we can do to help them. I work with Big Brothers, Big Sisters on the board. We help with mentoring programs, help with children, help with what we can do in the community there. Been on cancer boards where we're raising money to help in that regard. Been in the Lions Club. So I have been heavily involved in this community and taking an interest. And I can say, why would you listen to the people up here? I would say because, you know, these are the people that have a willingness to serve right now, and they put themselves up here. And I certainly have an appreciation for everybody for doing that.
Next question. We have a mayor that constantly talks about he likes to run the government like it's a business. And I probably shouldn't say this, but that rubs me the wrong way because I think they're two distinct entities. But I'm more interested in how you feel about government as a business as opposed to government as filling the needs of the community and the people.
That's what, being I happen to have the mic. That's why we have a city council committee, because it's not run as a business. The business head pretty well has his say or her say, however things are run. In the city government, that's not the case. We have the right, just like we did out to Pier, to override either the governor or the mayor. And when it's necessary, that's what the board is for, to keep control of and keep the city run on the proper channels it should be run on, and not dictated to by one person, no matter who that person is.
The power of the city council is to appropriate funds and set policy. The mayor's job is to execute it.
Yep.
In a private business, you can do whatever you want if you're the boss. You don't have to ask anybody. That's not the case in government. All he should be doing, he or she, is executing the policy that he's given. He needs to be very open, and he needs to bring things early and often to the council for their approval. He shouldn't be deviating from any of that. And there, I guess another part of that would be, there are some things that we would do as a city that we might not do as a business. We're not doing things only just to make money. There's certain things that we do for quality of life and to help the less fortunate. For example, paratransit. So there's things that we can do as a government, and we should do as a government, that you wouldn't necessarily do in private business.
Seems like we're keeping the same order here, but works out all right. Very good question. Throughout my, I went to high school here, right? So throughout my initial government classes, you kind of get kind of your sparkly view of government. Then you go to undergrad, right? And you're like, oh, there's a little bit more blinders. And then you go to graduate school, or I did, and I learned about organizational development, public policy, and how to implement them. And there's a vast difference between business and government. And just like Greg said, a business is there and doesn't necessarily have to hold the transparency that a government should hold to their people that they serve. A government serves the budget and to make a profit. The government serves people and the community. So it's important that anyone in any sort of elected position, whether it's on city council, it's a commissioner, it's a state government, a mayor, a president, needs to understand that it may take a bit longer with government, and we want to be as efficient as possible, but it's important that we do it the right way so everybody knows what's going on.
Well said. I guess I don't know exactly Mayor Huther personally or how he means that. I take it to mean you can't go underwater if you're a business and you're spending more than you make. You're not going to be around very long. The city government is similar in that fashion. There's only so much debt you can accrue. But at the same time, again, as we've noted, city government provides more than just profit. They're attempting to spend a very limited amount of funds on a vast array of issues that need it. But as we've noted, I think knowing that you're going with a council, it's not one man ruling everything. You know, this council is going to be different by half coming up here. There's going to be 4 new people on the council with 4 old dogs, and they're going to try and come together and find out what sort of you know, policies and issues need to take place.
Just want to mention for Mayor Huther, he is one of the hardest working persons that I know of. But it's going to take 8 of us to control him.
Marshall, would you want to say anything?
No.
Okay.
I am the mayor of a corner, 29th and 1st. You will have many constituents' needs to attend to, about 175,000. And some of us share a wide variety of issues that in my mind need immediate attention. What do you plan to do about monster houses being built in old neighborhoods full of old homes with character? What will you change about shaped places, and what will you do about code enforcement? Next one, what do you plan to do about potholes? Do we need a ballot issue like snow gates to get the backlog of potholes fixed? And what do you plan to do about expanding the territory covered by paratransit? I have four more.
Took up the hour.
For Melanie, that was a short question, by the way. So. Go ahead.
Who wants to shoot at that?
You want me to go?
Let's just
Sure.
Yep.
Well, I think you bring up a lot of good points. I think for me, as I've looked at, or attempted to look, for example, at the city budget and the internal auditor's review and things like that, I am blown away by the massivity of it. There's a lot of stuff in there. I think it takes, from what I understand, a lot of time to dig into those things, find out areas where there is waste being poured out, where we can find potholes. Obviously, everyone drives and no one wants their car to be ruined, and those sorts of things. We need to find more efficient ways to manage, obviously, our streets. The old McMansions that you mentioned, I think, is super important. I don't think anyone wants their neighborhoods changing in that way. I find you know, in my own neighborhood, it's great the way it was, and then 5 years go by and people start developing, you start wondering why you're living there. But I think these are issues, zoning, and I know Greg's worked on this a lot. It's all stuff that needs to be taken up by the council issue by issue. I wish I could give you more specifics. 30 seconds.
Three big things. First of all, with potholes. So we're spending $37 million, I think, this year on road repair. A lot of it is on big projects. This brings up the issue of prioritization and locking up our second penny. When we have 30% of our second penny that's locked up into debt service payments, that's less money that can go towards our roads. So that puts us in a bit of a pickle. So we have to find other things, and we're going to have to prioritize. There's other big things that want to get done, people want to get done, but we need to slow those down so we can work on the roads. We need to crank it up. And in some cases, just filling potholes just isn't going to cut it. Some of these superficial things is not enough. We're going to have to do more major road reconstruction. As I walk the neighborhoods in my district, some are appalling. I mean, appalling. The roads, and that's what citizens are saying. These roads are terrible. They need to be milled and overlaid, and there needs to be a lot more done. As far as shaped places, yeah, there's an issue with preserving the character of the residential neighborhoods, particularly in the core. They have a unique character. We have a residential historic preservation district. We're not using it. There's things that we can do to address that. So it's very important. And then paratransit. We need to protect paratransit. We need to protect the most vulnerable. We do not need to raise the rates on paratransit. We got to do everything we can to avoid that. That was a terrible decision in my view.
You can go first. Go ahead.
One of the things about the potholes, Southwest is our district, and we have Louise Avenue. If anybody's traveled on Louise Avenue, we know what problem we've got. I discussed that downtown, and they are going to overlay that next year. We have to, first they're going to do some other work on it to get us to next year so they can overlay it. And that same problem, because I've drove on some side streets, is still a problem all over the city. Now, according to my chart here, naturally police and fire rescue top of the list, and should be, for the protection of our citizens. But then you go down 1, 2, 3, 4 more down the line, and you finally get to city maintenance, street maintenance. That's the wrong place for street maintenance to be. It needs to be farther, much farther up that list. And they are going to do the capital improvement of an extra $35 million this year, which is terrific. Glad to see that. But it's, as far as the economy, the roads are critical. That's what our economy runs on. That's what every one of us use. That's what all of our businesses use. So that's one of my #1 issues in relation to economy, which affects a lot of different things, but especially it affects our roads, and we've got to do a much, much better job on that. As far as paratransit, obviously, my time's up, but those are the people that's why we have we have that to help those type of people, and we can't be raising the rates on that. So anyway, I'm done. I'm out of time.
Yeah, I visited with Mark Cotter up at the city about streets, because I said, you know, obviously, it's not something that, how can it be neglected, because it's got to be the first thing you hear about from everybody. The streets are bad, or potholes, or what you're hitting. So he talked a lot about some of the projects that are coming up, which sound promising. He did talk about, I remember this, the aqua fault, and I don't know if anybody saw the big feature they had on TV about this, but he said a lot of the problem with fixing potholes is what they've had in the past, you'd fix it, but in the middle of winter, it just wouldn't hold up. Well, this aqua fault supposedly is the miracle product, and they're feeling very optimistic about this, that it actually works and it will help on some of these deals. Like, I, again, live in the Southwest, and I was getting a little bit tired of white knuckling at home, thinking I'm going to take out the bottom of my car, and hopefully a product like that will help on streets. So it seems like it's getting some attention, and let's hope so. On the paratransit, nobody ever likes to see fees raised. I would say that maybe the only good thing, if there is something to come of that, is they're planning to put all that money back into the system in forms of adding vehicles, expanding routes. So if that is put back to it and it makes it better and helps people out, then let's hope that's the case. So.
So I think I got it all written down the questions to answer first. But I think it's important that we look as potential city council members, what we are in charge of is budget, right, and policy. So regarding the big houses and code enforcement and shade places, how can we affect the change that we need for our constituents and our voters and our citizens through policy and through budget to get the outcomes that we want? Something that for some reason I found out I liked in graduate school was statistics. I know some people are laughing. I'm not math, but statistics. It's a little bit different, and I think it's important that as a city council we hold ourselves accountable and ask for outcome measures and performance measures, have goals that are measurable, so that way in a year after a project we can come back and say, hey, you know what, it worked, and this is how, or you know what, didn't have quite the outcome we wanted, this is what we got, so we're going to try to do better next year. And I think that's very important when we look at, code enforcement or shade places. Paratransit, that's something through my day job, and I've always talked about make sure we serve all people. Not everyone has a car, right? And I think it's important not just in paratransit, but in public transportation, that we make it affordable and accessible for everyone. And that's across our entire city. We have and we're investing in our downtown Sioux Falls and activities. It's important that everyone can get down there and enjoy it.
Scott?
I guess I've been following city government probably since Munson took office, his first term. And the one thing I've seen decline even more after Heather took over is transparency, and especially the communication between the city council and the mayor's office. Administrations are always going to keep secrets from the people, but his legislative body should be able to hear everything that he hears. And I'm just going to be blunt. I'm not going to ask you what you need to do to fix the bridge between that communication problem. I'm asking you what you're going to do to burn that bridge down and build a whole new one. We have 4 new councilors coming up here. None of you are incumbents. It's time to fix that problem because it's becoming very frustrating. And the Argus filed a lawsuit over the event center. Because we can't get this information. Thank you.
So over the years, as I've watched council meetings and I've watched the last couple administrations, I do know what you're talking about. I think the first thing a council has to be willing to do is simply willing to say, no, slow down, let's bring it back later. We're not going to vote on this at the last minute. Sometimes we have major things that are just sprung up and then they're asked, let's vote on this next week. Sometimes you just have to say no. That's the first part. Transparency, sometimes it's hard we may not be able to fix the problem, but part of it is identifying it and saying it out loud. It's up to our leaders, city councilors, to hammer this. I've heard a lot of silence from many of them on certain issues. They have the bully pulpit. They could be hammering this siding issue and saying this needs to be opened up. This doesn't need to be confidential. It's not right. So part of it is just being leaders and talking about it. And then I guess the other thing is protecting public input and particularly the opening public input, and because there's always whispers about changing that, and that does go into it as well. So one of the big things I would fight for is transparency, and one of the big parts is just being brave enough to just say this is wrong.
I think that's a very good question. It just kind of follows up with the difference between a business and a government. And it's important that the people of a community, especially those that are very interested, understand how decisions are made, why, and the information that's given is shared, and to be as transparent as humanly possible. Again, I talk about listening and learning, and that's huge. A good leader, if you think of the good leaders that you've been involved in through your life, what do? They listen. And then they learn, and then they're able to ask the hard questions. So that way, even if the outcome isn't what you support or what you want, you're able to go back to your community, to your people, and tell them why it happened.
As city council members, we are put there by you people, by people that vote for us. We are supposed to be servants of those people. and whatever we do there, the servant shouldn't be able to keep information from the people who put them there. So yes, as I've already mentioned once, to have that open, the open government, the public available to the information that should be, like the event center. I was extremely disappointed the way that was handled. And I feel this is one of the things that we as a new board can get a hold of and do something about. And it's time to do so. And, I look forward to doing so.
Yeah, I think until you get in the job, I mean, I've tried to make a point of, as I'm running this campaign, not to criticize people that are holding the seat that I'm seeking or others who are running for it, just for the fact that I'm sure there's a lot of things we don't know about until we know all the circumstances. How do you judge the relationship and what can you do? All I can tell you is that I think one of the things that has helped me through my career is I've been told, an excellent listener, an excellent person to work with a variety of personalities. I think that I would be good at, as far as if there's some doors that are closed, I'm sure that I would do my best to open them with the situation that I'd find if elected. So I'm not going to use this to maybe slam anybody that's there. I don't know everything involved. I have heard some stories that maybe communication isn't the best here or there. As far as transparency, sometimes I understand if you're in government, there are certain things that maybe because of the law you can't disclose everything. But yes, it's something that I'm sure needs to be worked on. We'll see. I'm sure hopefully whatever fortunate four are elected can take a look at it and do something about it.
All very good comments. I think, for my part, I have really nothing to hide as long as we were mentioning there's no legal preclusion from letting this information out. I think everyone should know what is going on in the city government.
Gene?
As far as I can tell, there's only one former office holder, so this will be directed at Mr. Steele. In the 8 years you were in the South Dakota legislature, what legislation were you the prime sponsor of that passed and became law?
Probably one of the first one was when Olivia's went into tea. I sponsored that it wasn't the appropriate place for it to be. I was opposed to it to start with. And once in, we certainly couldn't eliminate it. It would be way too cost-effective and lawsuits to move it. So it was grandfathered in, but we passed the law that I sponsored to put some very rigid restrictions on where an adult entertainment should go. It doesn't belong next to a grade school. It doesn't belong next to a park. It doesn't belong next to a church. There are a whole list of restrictions that I put, and I think those, as far as I know, restrictions have been followed from that time to present. Thank you for the question.
You consider that significant?
I consider that very significant. To the people in T, it was extremely significant.
8 years.
I'd have to dig out other bills. I co-sponsored a lot of bills that I felt very strong about. I believe I sponsored one, I did, let's see, I have to stop and think. It had to do with a multi-housing association where they wanted, in fact it was against the city of Sioux Falls, I believe, they wanted to make it mandatory that people had to put a sprinkler system in any new home that was built. To me, that took away the option of the people, the ones who wanted to have that and wanted to pay the extra $3,000 to $4,000, they could do so.
Okay.
But those who did not want to, weren't forced to do so.
We got a question over here from...
Hi, you guys were talking about improving the roads, and it got me thinking about infrastructure and how Sioux Falls would have a really spectacular opportunity to not only improve the roads, but also create a citywide internet access. So if you're already digging up the roads, you might as well throw down some internet Wi-Fi lines so that no matter where you are, you have the opportunity to get homework done, check your email, watch CityLink, any of those things that would also help families who don't have enough money to pay for internet access in their homes so their kids could do homework, so people can look for jobs, that kind of stuff. Any thoughts on putting that into effect and how far you think that would be down the list of priorities?
Internet access to offer equality for all people is a big thing right now. I use the internet all day, every day. If the computer system goes down at work, what do you, the computer doesn't work, but you work for computers. It's part of my everyday life. It's intertwined in your phone, in your work, and everything you do. We need to work hard to make sure that everyone has access. Now, I don't know about laying lines and roads, or maybe a big company that's working on a certain balloon that may have a different idea for how we get worldwide internet access for all for free. But I think that's a very, especially speaking to the next generation coming up, me being the older one, part of that generation, is how do we have needs like that accessible to everybody, and how do we build it into our budget and our plan going forward? I think that's a very good question, and you should do some research, bring forward a plan. Anyone else?
Computers? I think that was well said.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Someone said they've been a student of city government for a while. I've been studying it fairly closely for about 32 years now. And I noticed that some of you seem to be very interested in what our mayor's done or hasn't done, or how he's done it. We have what some people call a strong mayor form of government. How many of you are in favor of a strong mayor, and how many of you would rather switch to a weak mayor or back to a commission form of government? And a follow-up question, which one of Mayor Huether's major projects that he got accomplished would you have supported, and which one wouldn't you have supported? And I'm talking about the Premier Center, the Swim Center, the railroad yard, and maybe you can think of another one. Which one would you have supported, and which one would you have been against?
Good question.
Good question. I'm 37, so you've been following city government almost as long as I've been alive. From my discussions with city directors and city leaders, it does seem pretty clear to me that the strong mayor form of government is the better form compared to the commission form. It does sound like the commission was a mess. Now, I think it might be a slight misnomer, right? A strong mayor doesn't mean that he gets to make all the decisions. There still needs to be a balance of power. So, I would say I have talked to directors, I've talked to other people. Now, of course, directors, they have a little bit of a, maybe have a little bit of a jaundiced opinion, or they have to nuance it a little bit because their job is on the line. But the mayor, I think, is somebody who works very hard, and it's not like he's all bad or anything like that. He's an executive, and he's said that. He thinks the legislature really is just kind of in the way, and he just wants to get stuff done. He's a go-getter, he wants to get stuff done, and sometimes you just got to pull the reins and slow him down a little bit. Now, as far as the big projects, that's a good question. Was I for the event center? No, not in that location. What were the other ones? The indoor pool, I would have rather had outdoor pools myself, because the indoor pool is going to impose a lot of operating costs. It's going to be $1 or $2 million, and it's going to be a big issue. So I guess I'd have to think about if there's a big project that would come up that I would say that I supported. But he's done a lot of good things, so I don't want to make it sound like we're just hammering the mayors. So I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, I would echo a little bit of that. The type of government isn't always necessarily the factor, it's who's in it. So if you have the council and the mayor, that they're working hand in hand. I think it's probably the preferred type of government. We have the strong mayor. But again, I don't know that it's necessarily the projects themselves even. It's how, maybe how they were managed. I think getting the rail yard out of downtown was a good idea. Was it done in the right way? I don't know all the specifics again. But I think anyone can see that downtown would be better off for having the rail yard out of there. Again, the aquatic center, it's a great idea. Does it work in South Dakota? I don't know. I mean, we have indoor pools already. The location, I don't know. But sometimes, like I say, it's not necessarily the project itself, it's how these things are administered, whether they're done correctly, whether they're voted on with too little time, too little investigation.
Strong public government, or mayor, basically is up to the individual mayor. The one we have right now, you know, is a very strong, opinionated mayor. The one we had prior to that was not. So it'll vary with the individual, but this is still the best form of government as far as I'm concerned. As far as the aquatic center, it's where it was located, I'm disappointed in. That was part of my District 12, and the neighborhood was not happy with that at all. And if we get to be a major draw for tournaments, we're going to have challenges getting all the people to that location on only a 2-lane road and back out again. It would have been much better in a different location. The event center, I'm not concerned so much about the location. I am concerned about the cost factor of what that's going to be on our table for many, many years. The railroad, I think you did a good job. I like the idea of leasing back to the railroad for those 2 years to give us that time to work out other possible problems or situations that may arise. So overall, I'm happy with what's happened.
Yeah, I think as far as the projects that you mentioned with the mayor, I've supported with the Premier Center and the Aquatic Center. I think there's one coming up that he's pushing kind of hard that I think we need to take a little time to rethink or do a little more homework on, and that is the administration building. They're looking at spending $25 million on this. There's a lot of questions that need to be asked that haven't been asked yet, and I think it's in front of the council right now, and they're trying to kind of slow that down and work through some things. We've got a county that's probably going to need a new building pretty soon. They've got a tired building, so what happens if we build this quickly, then they need something. I mean, maybe we should have a little more dialogue and see if that can be tied together, save the taxpayers dollars, money, and do something in the long term. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the project, just think that it needs a little more homework if you're looking for something on the, maybe slow down a minute on what the mayor's doing on that side of it. So as far as the form of government, I'm certainly not running to change that. I think it's been working overall. So that's what I have.
Give you the last word again.
Yeah, I would have to echo everything, but I think it's important, two things. One, I grew up here, went to undergrad here. I only moved away to go to graduate school. I moved my family and myself back here for a reason. I generally like Sioux Falls. I'm not coming to make huge change. When it comes to form of government, I would take advisement, again, listen and learning and using logic to make the decision. Is it something we need to move forward with? At this point, listening to city leaders and department heads, no. We just need to work with the system that we have. As far as projects go, some folks may have different opinions on the process to which these occurred, but I think something very important happened with a few of these projects. Does anyone know what I'm going to say? Listening to the public vote, right? I think as much as humanly possible, as a city council person, you need to listen and be able to represent what's best on what you hear from the people, especially those who care. There are a lot of dedicated folks who create around petitions, not just for certain candidates, but for other things to get on ballots. And that's a huge part of local government. And again, I'm preaching local government. Folks talk about national government. It's fun and it's, you know, kind of, it's, you know, the orange face and the tanning and whatnot. But what's important, again, is what can bring you, what puts you in jail, who pays for the jail, what city ordinance gets someone from our city knocking on your door. That's all locally driven folks. So it's important that we have people on the council that are willing to listen and apply what they listen to their decisions.
Okay, I think we got time for one more question, and Jerry had her hand up. Okay.
Oh, okay. And I guess this is to Mr. Steele, because he has had 8 years here with a closed caucus. And I was just wondering how you can say you want open government when you spent 8 years in here and your caucuses were closed.
it wasn't my choice to have it closed. That's the way it was. It is, and will continue to be. There are situations at that caucus that are discussed, and I was happy with it because I know of things that were discussed that probably I wouldn't want the press to have a hold of. Now, for the people that hear it, individually it might be all right, but there were things discussed of the individual members that were there, and I did not find that disturbing that our caucus was closed. I have to say the Democratic caucus is open. I've been to their caucus, and it works well for them. The caucus ended up being closed because of what was said at caucuses that were in turn used against us at a later time. And if it wasn't for that, they probably would be still open. But there were situations as such that got it closed. But thank you for the question. It is a valid point, and it's been discussed a lot, whether it's appropriate or not appropriate to have that open or closed caucus.
Did anybody else want to comment just on open government so far as city goes? No? Okay. We're going to have to wrap it up, but we'll do one quick one, Jim.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming down. You're part of the reason that Sioux Falls is such a good place to live.
Don't come back now. Here.